Welcome. Joe Volpe, publisher of Corriere Canadese, North America's only Italian-language daily newspaper, and we do things in English as well, and in Portuguese, and sometimes even in Spanish. Today we're going to do something different. We're going to have an interview with a practicing politician, a former cabinet minister in the government of Ontario, and now, this is a big secret, it's not going to remain a secret for long, give me about a minute. She's actually going to run for the leadership of the Ontario Liberal Party. So I speak of none other than Mitzie Hunter. Many of you will know her as the former Minister of Education, the former Minister of Advanced Learning Skills, etc. So, Mitzie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for that grand introduction, Joe.
It's not that grand.
I just want to say that many people are asking me to run for the leadership of the party. It is something that I am thinking about and making sure that I give it the
But you haven't made
careful
the announcement yet.
Consideration that a run like that would require.
So you have people like me who automatically jump and say, well, from thinking, she's actually going to do it.
Well, you know, I think that it's an important position. It's
Yes.
it's leading a party that is important to Ontarians. We, in the last election, had over 1.1 million people vote Liberal, and those are the people that we're reaching out to and connecting with the roots of the party as we rebuild and revitalize right now.
But it's fair to say that, that's going to be a tough task. Even though you got 1.1 million votes, that didn't translate into very many seats. Yours being one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, one of 7 seats that were held in a wave that saw the election of a Conservative government. And, you know, I think that people are going to recognize that there are some things that they might not like that's happening in Ontario from that Conservative government. And that's why, as Liberals, we have to be ready. We have to put out those values that people really feel are important, like education, health care, the environment, and making sure that we build around those things that are progressive values for this province. And in a context where we have an economy that is growing. Under the Liberals, we saw the lowest unemployment rate in over 2 decades. Now it's over 40 years, and the fastest growth in our GDP. So, you know, that's what we have to offer by investing in education, by providing a good quality of life for people in Ontario. What we know is that not everyone was feeling that quality of life, and we have to pay attention to that.
Well, you know, excuse me for being brutal for a moment there. There was a perception that you weren't paying attention. You, as a government at the time, weren't paying attention, and that's why we had this great big turnover.
I mean, the government was in office for 15 years, and you know, there's a sense that people wanted something different, and that might be a factor in what happened in the June 7th, 2018 results.
But the governments of Ontario, excuse me for being just a little bit critical, you know, typically they can do what people suggest. Is, number one, you can talk about education, so you're a perfect person to talk to about that. Secondly, they can deal with health care. And thirdly, what else? You know, it's in Ontario, especially Ontario, the dynamics of the economy are dictated someplace else, not in Ontario. So if we're going to be addressing some of the issues that we talked about before, education, this government is already talking about cutting back or re-examining the issues associated with, let's say, kindergarten, all-day junior and senior kindergarten, the merits of the sex ed curriculum, the expansion of some of the infrastructure. Now, you were responsible for that, the infrastructure. You were pouring money into rebuilding schools, etc. And this government suggested maybe that wasn't a good idea.
You know, Joe, when I was first appointed as Education Minister, the first announcement that I made was a $1.1 billion in our schools, in the repairs and the maintenance of our school system. And because we know that we have to invest in education. If we're going to compete and have an economy that is growing and thriving in Ontario, the best investment we can make is in the skills and the talents of our people. And that actually starts at the very earliest ages, all the way through elementary and into secondary school and beyond into post-secondary education. So a government like what we're seeing today, just last week, the Ford government announced a $1 billion cut to post-secondary education. You know, are you thinking of the future? Are you thinking of growing the economy? If you're cutting the best investment that you can make, which is to have the right skills and talents here in Ontario.
But they also, you know, not to be critical, but to be fair or balanced in the discussion, they also said that some of the things didn't work. For example, on the skill side, now, this wasn't part of your initiative, but there was a College of Trades and Skills, and they canceled that. And they said that there's more than enough available. The numbers seem to be a little bit different. So when you're talking about skills and trades there, you're also talking about skills that are required in a non-academic environment, in a non-lab environment, but in the marketplace?
I mean, we can unpack this. I think that the canceling of the College of Trades is something that was done as part of the government's omnibus bill. There was a lot embedded in there. And the problem that the industry is now having is that there's nothing to replace that. And so sometimes this Conservative government under Ford tends to act very quickly without thinking through what the policy implications are and then sort of sorting it out all later. And, you know, when it comes to skilled trades in Ontario, we actually need more people who get involved in skilled trades of all kinds. And that starts with our young people. When I was Minister of Education, one of the focus areas that we had was on career pathways. Starting in grade 9, exposing our young people to many different career choices and options, whether it's, you know, working in the skills trade or focusing on college or a university pathway, or going right into entrepreneurship or innovation. And those are some of the kinds of focus areas that we need to encourage young people to make different choices according to their own ideas and what they want to do later on.
So it's a little bit. What I hear from this, for example, is that you'd say that a government has a responsibility to validate and spread that validation throughout society on the merits of being, without being denigrating, because these are some of my friends and they earn a lot more money than I do, plumbing, carpentry, bricklaying, construction infrastructure. All of these are, in other places around the world, respected, I don't want to say professions, but careers. And they're well-paying. But our educational system doesn't seem to lend itself to sending out that message or encouraging young men and women to engage in those fields.
And you need to expand that list. You know, there's electrical, there's horticulture and arborists, and you know, we have in the GTA a shortage of arborists, and so we need people to really see that the trades are an option and an avenue, and they are fantastic careers, well-paying, in-demand jobs that really are needed in a province like Ontario that is growing.
But, you know, those are positions that are currently filled. I know you know this. They're currently filled by what we call undocumented workers. They're people who come here from abroad, overstay their visa, don't go back, because they find a job here that, you know, it's there, available tomorrow, because the construction sector, the arborist sector, all of those skills in demand sectors aren't getting the talent locally. And so, you know, there's a frustration on the part of some people saying, when are governments going to realize that? Because the government's got to be the solution to everything. But when are governments going to realize that and do two things? Number one, validate all those undocumented workers. That's not your purview. Or number two, start getting people in the school systems to say, you know what? Your son or daughter can do this job just as well as being in a classroom as a teacher.
Well, there's a lot there that you're sort of saying. I mean, I'll speak to the motivation at the education level, because we need parents and families as well to see that these are great career choices. And
so that's where we've got to do the first educating.
We've got to do the first educating in the families, in the homes, how we talk about our skilled trade workforce and how we value the workforce. And, you know, as Minister of Advanced Education and Skills Development, I had an opportunity to launch was largely focused on making sure that we simplify the system, we work together with employers so that there are good practices in terms of recruiting apprentices, making sure they're supported all the way through their journey, working with different employers. There was even creative options as if like pooling the employer groups in small communities so that someone can complete their training and move on to certification. So, you know, making sure that we have a robust pipeline of people who are here is important. A lot of the trades talk to me about the immigration system and that we need to recruit people who are skilled in certain trades that can have the appropriate qualifications to work here in Canada and in Ontario, and that is something that I support.
Well, so, you know, to be fair with you, you were a Minister of Advanced Education, Skills and Trades for only a short time. So this suggests to me that that's the plan you were working on. And I know that there was money associated with that, but I can't remember how much you had in the budget. What do you think is required in terms of giving a really serious focus? You know, somebody like you would know a lot more than virtually anybody else. So you say, okay, I've got this plan. It sounds great. I've got this plan. Here's how I'm going to do it, and this is how much it's going to cost. Have you done that so far?
Well, you know what's challenging right now is that under the former Liberal government, there was resources and money put behind certain policies. You know, take for example OSAP, which is the financial aid that supports students who want to go into post-secondary college, university. And the uptake in that tuition program is categorized as free tuition because largely the grants that you would receive would cover the full cost of your tuition plus living, books, etc. Anything to help our young people get access to post-secondary education. It had increased by 50%. That's a significant jump in terms of who is accessing post-secondary education. We actually see our Indigenous communities 33% growth in applying and participating in the OSAP program and in going on to complete their post-secondary education. That's extraordinarily important. Single parents, mostly single mothers, finally having the chance and the financial support through OSAP to go back to school. So this was a program, it was in for one full year that was really showing results in terms of increasing access, but particularly for groups that would historically not be there. And sadly, you know, the Conservative government under Ford is reducing that. They want to revert back to the old levels. They don't want to support the increased access, and they actually are shifting the burden of post-secondary onto the backs of students by, you know, reducing the grants, increasing loans, and calling those loans on the first day that someone graduates. So they don't even have the 6 months grace period without interest to repay that loan. And we know how challenging it is for some individuals. You know, when I was going to school, I always worked at the same time as I was putting myself through university, and therefore, it was challenging to juggle both.
But you didn't leave with a huge debt on your back, though, did you?
Well, I had some student loans, and then, you know, I went on and did a master's degree in business administration. So, you know, I did acquire some loans to do that. But we recognize that as a society, we have to make those investments in education, and we have to make sure that all students of all backgrounds have a chance at a better life by giving them the supports that they need financially to complete their education.
So you've just reminded me that one of the things that I should have done is I should have given everybody the credentials you bring to your consideration, because you haven't made a declaration yet of what you're going to do. And I mean, those people who are in the Liberal Party or citizens of Ontario have got to be looking and saying, okay, she sounds good. Like, who is she? What is she? And so what we'll do is we'll take a look at, there must be some of your supporters there in front of Queen's Park. But you know, we have a situation where, you know, I didn't describe who you are. You have a lot of history at the City of Toronto and in the social service agencies. Mm-hmm. Well, tell us just a brief moment of, you know, glory in your own description.
And the crowd that you saw gathered in front of Queen's Park were those students who were protesting the decision to cut tuition by 10%. Sizes and reduces the quality in our education system. You know, my family and I immigrated to Canada from Jamaica, and the one thing that I remember my parents always saying is that you're in this country to have a better life, and the way to do that is through education. So I'm very passionate about our education system. It's certainly has benefited me, and it's something that I believe needs to be available in our society. And you know, before politics, I just want to say, before politics, so I've been in politics now for 5 years. You know, I was out in the business world, in the nonprofit world, you know, really looking at how do we build a better society? How do we create a community where everyone can thrive, where our economy thrives, our environment thrives, and more importantly, our young people thrive. So I was the CEO of Civic Action, and it's an organization that was devoted to doing that.
But it's also devoted to promoting Toronto and the business opportunities in Toronto.
Yeah.
And you have an MBA to back that up as well. So, Mitzie, we could go on for a little while, but because you're still only at the consideration stage and you got that big crowd out there that's already thinking, oh, where's Mitzie now? I have to cut it off and say, I'm going to ask you whether you would like to come back again, and we can get a little bit more specific once you have taken the bait, jumped into the pool and said, here I am, I want to do this.
Well, absolutely. I would love to come back and talk to you, Joe, and your audience. These are such important issues in our democracy, and it's only through conversation and debate that we engage people. So I would love to do that.
So I want to just close off by saying that one of the reasons why we invited you on is because you were instrumental in a couple of decisions that we're still dealing with, but you had the foresight and the courage to do a couple of things. Number one, in the York Region District School Board, and number two, in the Toronto Catholic District School Board, and its decision to spend some money to partner with the Columbus Center. This is an issue that's very important for us. Your decision in both cases was absolutely crucial to moving the thing along. So thank you very much for coming, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks so much. Thank
Joe
you.
Volpe for Corriere Canadese, Go Live TV, Corcan Media Group, thanking you for watching us, and you can still catch us all on our social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, all the others, and Go Live TV, and you'll get a chance to review everything that Mitzie just said to us, and we'll hold you to everything.
That's right.
Take care. Thank you very much. Ciao.